Well, for Dustin and Michael Callison and Michael Jordan, it's really been a 3 to 4 year process of them just continuing to develop to get to this point. And fortunately and unfortunately, as they've developed, Division II has gotten more and more competitive to the point that, marks that Dustin ran as a freshman that qualified him for the national championships wouldn't have even made the meet this year. But he's continued to develop and is now one of the top 10 athletes in all time in Division II in the 10,000. I certainly feel like his chances going in as one of the top 2 ranked competitors are pretty good to contend for a national title. With Michael Jordan, he certainly had some challenges after running an auto qualifier and then competing well at the Mount Sac relays. He had to have an emergency appendectomy and then missed 2 weeks of training, but seems to be doing very well now. His training has been just as good post-surgery as it was pre-surgery, so I feel like really his chances haven't been hindered in the least with that setback. And Michael Callison is coming off of a conference title in the steeplechase and really is running much more consistently than he was a year ago when he really truly had one good race last spring, and that was his one qualifier. This year he's been pretty solid every time he stepped on the track, so certainly feel like all 3 of them are poised to compete very well and contend for All-American honors. Certainly going to elevation, that changes the dynamic a little bit, but it's something that we're really not trying to dwell and focus on. It is what it is. It's part of the challenges of competing. Certainly that puts a few athletes at a marked advantage, but for us competing against the majority of the field, which is from sea level, we feel like with our aerobic background and the type of mileage and volume that we do, we've really tried to prepare for that altitude dynamic, especially with the steeplechasers, by really training them more like 10,000 meter runners this spring. They've been doing the same volume and workouts as Dustin Emerick has training for the 10K, and we feel like with having to run a qualifying round on Thursday, come back with a final on Friday, with the altitude factor, that will certainly give them a strength advantage. Well, in the 10,000, outside of Dustin, most of the top competitors were either born at altitude or train at altitude now. There are a couple of Kenyan athletes, one from American International, one from Central Missouri, who spent most of their life at significant elevation. And then there's Tyler Pinnell from Western State and Gabe Proctor from Western State, who are altitude athletes, and then Matt Bond from Adams State. Certainly with those athletes coming down 3,000 feet in elevation to compete and Dustin going up 4,500 feet in elevation to compete, that makes it a little more difficult. But the way that he's training right now with his preparation, I would say that he'll be ready to mix it up. Well, Ryan Havey from Western State appears to be the heavy favorite in the steeple. After that, I feel like our guys can mix it up with anyone in the field. It'll be interesting to see how the race plays out at altitude. That could certainly change race tactics a little bit. We've worked certainly more on top end speed with those guys this year, knowing that if it is a slow pace early, that they'll have to be fast over the last kilometer. So, I feel like they've prepared well, and I feel like it's there's a lot of guys in that field between 8:53 and 9 flat, and that's not a lot of difference in that event.